It began on an ordinary autumn afternoon, the kind where the air smelled of harvested wheat and the lowing of cows echoed across the valley. But for Lily, the quiet farm girl with calloused hands and tired eyes, that afternoon would burn into memory like a scar. She wasn't the type who drew attention. Her world was the farmhouse, the barn, and the endless acres of golden fields. The town kids called her country mouse or worse, sneered at her simple clothes, her silence, the way she'd rather whisper to horses than chatter in school halls. Lily endured it with quiet grace. After all, she had grown up believing storms pass if you stand still enough. But bullies don't always let storms pass. Sometimes, they become the storm. The cruel joke. On that fateful day, a group of local teens cornered her while she was walking home from the feed store. They were the usual crowd. Bradley, tall and cocky with a smirk that could slice, and two girls who followed him like shadows, hungry for his approval. "What's the matter, farm girl?" Bradley taunted, stepping in front of her. "Got a date with your chickens tonight?" Lily tried to move past, eyes on the ground. She had learned silence was her shield. But today, they wanted more. They shoved her toward the woods at the edge of the dirt road, laughing at her frightened protests. And there, with rope stolen from someone's truck bed, they tied her to a tree. Bark scraped her arms, rope bit into her wrists, and their laughter echoed like cruel thunder. It was supposed to be a joke, at least that's how they'd defend it later. But standing there, trapped and humiliated, Lily's chest tightened not with fear alone, but with something deeper, an ache she had buried for years. She whispered through tears, "Why won't you just leave me alone?" The question, trembling and small, was swallowed by their laughter. The call that changed everything. When they finally left her there, bound and shaking, Lily's cheek pressed against the rough bark. She felt powerless, until she remembered the tiny device clipped beneath her shirt. Her husband had given it to her before he deployed back home, an emergency phone disguised as a simple pendant. He had insisted, almost stubbornly, "If you're ever in trouble, no matter how small, you press this. Understand?" At the time, she had rolled her eyes. Trouble? On a farm? She thought he was being dramatic. But now, tied to that tree, she pressed the button. Somewhere miles away, in a base where shadows moved like ghosts, a signal lit up on Captain James Cross's screen. James, her husband, the man the world only knew as Delta Force, stared at the coordinates. His pulse slammed against his ribs. He was supposed to be off duty, training recruits. But when that signal pulsed, nothing mattered. Not rank, not protocol, not distance. The only thought that filled him was simple and savage: my wife is in danger. The arrival. It didn't take hours. It took minutes. Lily didn't see how. She only knew that the moment the sound of a truck engine growled down the dirt road, her heart jolted. And when a tall figure stepped from the shadows, broad-shouldered, eyes blazing like steel, her breath caught. James was there. The bullies, who had lingered nearby to watch her humiliation, froze. They hadn't expected anyone to come, let alone him. They whispered nervously words like military, special forces, but before they could scatter, James's voice cut the air. "You tied my wife to a tree." It wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. His tone was colder than winter, sharper than a blade. In seconds, he had them against the ground, not with wild violence, but with the precision of a man who lived his life in battle. He untied Lily first, brushing the rope burns with gentle hands, before turning his fury on the bullies. They trembled as he made them face her, his voice low but unyielding. "You think this was a joke? Look at her. Look at what you did. You don't humiliate people for sport. You don't break souls for laughter." And in that moment, the bullies realized they weren't facing just a man, they were facing the embodiment of every consequence they tried to escape. The deeper wound. Later, back at the farmhouse, Lily sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The rope marks were fading, but her silence worried James more than any bruise. "You could have been hurt," he said softly, crouching before her. She blinked, finally letting the dam of emotions break. "I've been hurt for years, James. Not just today. Every look, every laugh. I tried to ignore it, but it feels like I don't belong anywhere. James took her hands, steady and strong. You belong with me. And you belong to yourself. Don't let their cruelty define you. The challenge ahead. But it wasn't over. Word spread fast in the small town. Some defended the bullies, they're just kids fooling around, while others whispered about James's fearsome intervention. Lily felt torn between gratitude and guilt. The challenge was not just facing the bullies, but facing a community that often turned a blind eye. Together, Lily and James decided to act, not with fists or threats, but with courage. They spoke at the school board meeting. They told the story, unflinching, about humiliation and cruelty, about what it does to a person's soul. Lily's voice trembled as she said, "You think words and jokes don't leave scars? But I am living proof they do. I want no one else to feel like I did." The room fell silent. For the first time, those who had dismissed her as invisible truly saw her. Resolution. The bullies were disciplined, but more importantly, the town began to change. Programs against bullying were introduced, and Lily, once the quiet farm girl, found herself leading conversations she never thought she could. And James? He remained her shield, but he also reminded her that the greatest strength was the one she found inside herself. Final message: sheaf of rice. Months later, as she walked the fields at sunset, Lily realized the rope scars had healed. But the memory hadn't broken her. It had built her. Her story became one of resilience, courage, and the power of standing up, not just for yourself, but for others who can't. And perhaps the most important truth she carried was this: cruelty may echo, but kindness endures longer. Call to action. If this story moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments what part touched you most, or if you've ever faced moments where kindness or courage changed everything. And don't forget, this story is brought to you by Be Kind Always. If you believe in stories that inspire, empower, and remind us of the strength within, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Together, we can make kindness louder than cruelty.